You know those days when nothing goes as planned? Well, for Michael Turner, missing his flight was just the beginning of a series of surprises. Who would have thought that coming home early would uncover secrets that would change not just his life, but the entire neighborhood? With the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders, Michael began to peel back the layers of deceit, setting the stage for a confrontation that would not only define his future, but also ripple through the community he had once thought he knew. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban street as Michael Turner pulled into his driveway, his mind still buzzing from the chaos of the day. He had planned to be miles away by now, navigating the bustling energy of an airport, mentally preparing for a business trip that could define his career. Instead, a last-minute meeting had kept him grounded, a twist of fate that now led him to an unplanned return home. As he stepped out of the car, briefcase in hand, the familiar comfort of their charming home should have welcomed him. But something felt off, an almost imperceptible tension in the air that made his heart beat quicken. The house stood silent, save for the faint, muffled sounds that drifted from an upstairs window. Sounds that struck him as both intimate and alien. Driven by an unsettling mix of curiosity and dread, Michael quietly pushed open the front door, the creak echoing in the stillness. He paused at the foot of the stairs, the realization of what he might find dawning on him in slow, painful clarity. With each cautious step, the sound grew clearer, a mingling of laughter and whispers that were unmistakably close. As he reached the top, the door to their bedroom was slightly ajar, the scene within frozen. In a moment of betrayal, there, entwined with their neighbor Brad Collins, was his wife, Sophia, her laughter a knife twisting deeper into his heart. Stunned, Michael stood in the dim hallway, his mind reeling from the shock. The life he thought he knew crumbled before him, the illusion of a perfect marriage shattered by the cruel reality of the scene before his eyes. He retreated, each step backward feeling like a descent into an unfamiliar world where trust was but a fragile facade. In the days that followed, Michael was a man adrift, his emotions a turbulent sea of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. Yet, amidst the chaos, a quiet resolve began to form. He knew that confronting Sophia and Brad in the heat of the moment would only lead to further destruction. Instead, he chose a path of careful deliberation, determined to untangle the web of deceit that had ensnared his life. His journey towards understanding and justice would be fraught with challenges, but Michael was no longer just a man who had missed a flight. He was a man who would rise from the wreckage, seeking not only personal closure but also a deeper truth about the lives intertwined in this suburban drama. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, what would you do if you walked in on a betrayal like this? And if you're hooked already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. More gripping stories like this are coming your way. The quiet stillness of the house was a stark contrast to the storm raging within Michael Turner's heart. Days had passed since the revelation, but the scene replayed in his mind with relentless precision. His world, once a tapestry of routine and trust, now lay in tatters, each thread pulled apart by the harsh grip of betrayal. He sat, alone in the dim light of his living room, the shadows of the evening creeping in like silent specters of his shattered dreams. Michael's emotions were a cacophony of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. He felt as though he was drifting through a fog, each step uncertain, each breath a reminder of the betrayal he had witnessed. Yet, amidst the chaos, a flicker of resolve sparked within him. He knew that a hasty confrontation would only fan the flames of destruction. Instead, he needed clarity, a full understanding of the deceit woven into the fabric of his life. With a heavy heart, Michael decided on a methodical approach. The truth, he realized, was a slippery thing, easily obscured by the emotions of the moment. To bring it into the light, he needed evidence, something tangible to ground his suspicions. So, he began the painstaking process of gathering proof. Late into the night, he sat before the glow of his computer, combing through a sea of digital correspondence. Each email, every message, was a puzzle piece in the larger picture of betrayal. As he delved deeper, a pattern began to emerge. Brad, the friendly neighbor whose smile had once seemed so genuine, now appeared as a predator cloaked in respectability. Michael discovered a trail of manipulation. Stretching back years, a web of deceit spun with meticulous care. Brad's history of seducing women in the community was laid bare, each conquest a testament to his cunning duplicity. The realization hit Michael hard, but with it came a grim sense of purpose. He could feel the pieces falling into place, each revelation fueling his determination to see justice done. He was no longer just a man grappling with personal betrayal. He was on the cusp of uncovering a greater truth, a hidden darkness lurking beneath the surface of suburban serenity. Michael's mind raced as he considered his next move. Confronting the situation head-on, without a plan, would be reckless. He needed to approach this strategically to ensure that the truth could not be denied or dismissed. A confrontation was inevitable, but it had to be on his terms, at a time and place of his choosing. He envisioned the moment with clarity, a confrontation not born of vengeance, but of justice. It would be a reckoning, not just for himself, but for all those who had been ensnared in Brad's web. As the plan took shape, in his mind, Michael felt a sense of calm settle over him, a quiet strength that steadied his resolve. The days that followed were a blur of careful preparation. Michael continued his investigation, piecing together the narrative of deceit with meticulous care. Each new discovery added weight to his resolve, bolstering his commitment to see the truth revealed. He was no longer a man adrift in a sea of emotions. He was a man with a mission, driven by a need for justice and closure. As the plan crystallized in his mind, Michael knew that the road ahead would not be easy. Confronting Brad and Sophia would be fraught with challenges, but he was ready. He had faced the weight of betrayal and emerged stronger, a man transformed by the fires of adversity. The path to justice was clear, and Michael was prepared to walk it, no matter where it might lead. In the quiet of his home, Michael stood, the resolve in his heart reflected in the determined set of his shoulders. The shadows of betrayal still lingered, but he could see the light of truth on the horizon. He was ready to confront the reality of his life, to unravel the deceit that had ensnared him, and to reclaim his future. In the quiet aftermath of revelation, Michael stood at the crossroads of despair and determination. The betrayal that had shattered his world now served as a catalyst for something greater. He realized that his pain, though deeply personal, was not his alone. It was time to reach out, to find others who had been ensnared in the same web of deceit. Michael began his discreet outreach, carefully selecting moments to connect with women in the community who had whispered tales of betrayal. His approach was gentle, respectful, a tentative step into a shared journey. The conversations began slowly, each word a cautious exploration of trust. But as the walls of silence crumbled, a flood of stories emerged, each more harrowing than the last. The tales he heard were a mosaic of heartbreak and betrayal. Each woman recounted her own version of the same story, a man who had woven himself into their lives under false pretenses, leaving a trail of devastation. In his wake, the collective pain was palpable, a testament to the depth of Brad's manipulation. As they spoke, Michael felt their shared anguish, a chorus of voices united by a common thread of betrayal. It was in these moments of shared vulnerability that a sense of camaraderie began to form. The women, once isolated in their suffering, found strength in numbers. Together, they forged a coalition, a support network, dedicated not only to healing but to holding Brad accountable for his actions. Michael, once a solitary figure in his quest for justice, now stood at the helm of this burgeoning alliance, his resolve bolstered by the collective strength of those around him. Strategic planning became the lifeblood of their coalition. The group came together in secret meetings, huddled in living rooms and cafes, their discussions focused and determined. They pooled their resources, gathering testimonies and evidence, consulting with legal advisors who could guide them on the path to justice. Each woman contributed her piece of the puzzle, and together, they crafted a strategy to expose the truth. As the coalition grew, so too did Michael's sense of purpose. The weight of personal betrayal was still there, but it was now accompanied by a deeper resolve to seek justice not just for himself, but for all who had suffered. In the solidarity of the group, he found a new kind of strength, a shared commitment to a cause greater than individual grievances. Michael's journey was one of transformation. The man who had once stood in the doorway, heartbroken and alone, was now a leader among equals, driven by a cause that transcended his own pain. He had found his voice, not in isolation, but in the collective power of those who stood with him. Their meetings were punctuated by moments of reflection and growth. Each member of the coalition found healing in the shared stories, the understanding that they were not alone in their experiences. The group became more than just a force for change. It was a sanctuary, a place where each person could rebuild themselves from the ashes of betrayal. As Michael looked around at the faces of those who had joined him, he saw not victims, but survivors. Together, they had forged a path toward justice, a journey that would demand courage and resilience. But in their unity, they had found the strength to confront the darkness that had once seemed insurmountable. With each passing day, their plan took shape, a tapestry of testimonies and evidence woven together by the hands of those determined to see justice served. Michael knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was no longer walking it alone. He was part of a movement, a force that would not be silenced, driven by the shared desire to reclaim their lives and expose the truth. In the quiet moments of reflection, Michael felt a profound sense of peace. The shadows of betrayal still lingered, but the light of truth shone brighter with each step they took. Together, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, united by their commitment to justice and the unwavering belief that change was possible. In the quiet solitude of his new resolve, Michael sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop illuminating the lines of determination etched across his face. The air was thick with the scent of coffee and anticipation. The coalition's work had begun to bear fruit, but it was in the privacy of his home that Michael stumbled upon the most damning evidence yet. It was an ordinary evening when curiosity drove him to search through old emails, hoping to piece together the puzzle of his fractured life. As he scrolled through messages, a particular thread caught his eye. The subject line was innocuous, but the content within was anything but. Conversations between his wife and Brad, a man he once called a friend, unveiled a scheme that reached far beyond personal betrayal. The emails were a tangled web of deceit, a collaboration that sought to undermine not just Michael's marriage, but his career, They spoke of clandestine meetings, strategic manipulations, and calculated decisions aimed at discrediting him within their professional circle. As the realization dawned, Michael felt the ground shift. Beneath him, the betrayal he had once thought confined to the heart now seeped into every corner of his life, tainting the very foundation of his existence. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat a painful reminder of the trust shattered. The layers of betrayal were, like a relentless tide, threatening to pull him under. Yet, in the midst of the storm, a steely resolve took root. This was not just about personal grievances anymore. It was about standing up against manipulation and deceit that had permeated every aspect of his life. He brought the evidence to the coalition, their collective gasp a testament to the gravity of the revelation. The group, already a tapestry of resilience and determination, now had a new thread woven into their cause, one that demanded justice not just for Michael, but for all who had been wronged by the deceitful machinations of those they once trusted. Together, they meticulously strengthened their case, each piece of evidence meticulously documented and organized. The professional misconduct was not just a personal vendetta, it was a breach of ethics that could not be left unchallenged. The coalition, a force of solidarity, turned their focus to the broader community, subtly informing trusted members of the neighborhood about their findings. The ripple effect was undeniable. Whispers of infidelity and manipulation began to circulate, unraveling the carefully constructed facades of trust and integrity within the community. Neighbors exchanged glances filled with suspicion, and conversations that once centered around mundane matters now carried an undercurrent of tension. The scandal had ignited a firestorm, exposing the underlying issues that had festered beneath the surface for far too long. As Michael navigated these tumultuous waters, he found himself at the center of a growing movement. The coalition's efforts were gaining traction, their voices amplified by the support of those who had been kept silent for too long. It was a delicate dance of diplomacy and determination, a careful balance of revealing enough to garner support while protecting the integrity of their mission. In the midst of the chaos, Michael found solace in the knowledge that he was not alone. The coalition, once a refuge for the wounded, had become a bastion of strength, a beacon of hope for those seeking justice. Each step they took was a testament to their resilience, their unwavering belief that change was not only possible, but necessary. As the chapter of his life unfolded, Michael realized that his journey was far from over. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but he was no longer walking it alone. He was part of something greater, a movement that demanded accountability and truth. In the shared struggle, he found a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to see justice served not just for himself, but for all who stood with him. The darkness that had once seemed insurmountable was now met with the light of truth, a beacon guiding them forward. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, united by their resolve and the unwavering belief that integrity would prevail. In the quiet moments before dawn, Michael stood at the window, the weight of the impending day pressing heavily on his shoulders. The coalition, a steadfast assembly of those wronged, had spent countless nights preparing for this confrontation. Documents lay meticulously organized, each sheet a testament to the betrayal they had uncovered. It was time to bring the truth into the light. The plan was simple yet profound. They would initiate legal proceedings against Brad and Sophia, demanding accountability for their actions. With every step, Michael felt the ghosts of his past urging him forward. Their whispers a reminder of why he had embarked on this journey. It was no longer just about personal vindication. It was about integrity and justice for all who had been ensnared by deceit. As the sun rose, so too did the anticipation. The community meeting was set to take place in the local town hall, a venue that had witnessed countless debates, but never one quite like this. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of urgency, a collective breath held in anticipation of the revelations to come. When the time finally arrived, Michael stood at the front of the room, his allies flanking him in silent support. The room was packed, every seat filled with neighbors who had once shared laughter and camaraderie. Today, however, their faces were drawn and expectant, eyes fixed on the man who had become the unwitting catalyst for change. Michael cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the hushed room. He began to speak, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. He recounted the discovery, the betrayal that had shattered not only his world but that of many others. As he presented the damning evidence, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The truth was undeniable, laid bare for all to see. Brad and Sophia sat at the back, their expressions a mix of defiance and disbelief. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, a chorus of shock and anger. As the weight of their actions became clear, the couple shrank back, their carefully constructed facade crumbling around them. The meeting reached its zenith as the community, galvanized by the revelations, began to speak out. Voices that had been silent for too long found their strength, demanding justice and accountability. The once tight-knit neighborhood was now united in its resolve to confront the wrongdoing, to demand respect and integrity. As the meeting drew to a close, the consequences of Brad and Sophia's actions became apparent. Legal ramifications loomed on the horizon, and the social repercussions were immediate. Neighbors who had once welcomed them into their homes now turned away, their trust irrevocably shattered. But in the midst of the fallout, something remarkable began to happen. The community, once fractured by deceit, began to heal. They rallied around the victims, their support a tangible force for change. Conversations that had once been whispered in shadows were now held openly, a testament to the power of truth. Michael, standing amidst the aftermath, felt a sense of closure begin to settle within him. The journey had been arduous and fraught with pain, but it had also forged connections and fostered resilience. The coalition, once a disparate group of individuals, had become a unified force for good. In the days that followed, the neighborhood embraced a new ethos of honesty and respect. The scandal had ignited a movement, one that transcended the boundaries of their community. It was a call to action, a reminder that integrity was not just desired but essential. As Michael reflected on the events that had unfolded, he realized that he had found something he had not expected: peace. The truth, though painful, had set him free, allowing him to step forward with renewed purpose. He was no longer defined by betrayal, but by the strength and unity that had emerged from it. The chapter of confrontation had concluded, but the story of change and healing was just beginning. Together, the community would continue to forge a path toward a future built on trust, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, the air in the neighborhood felt different. The shadows that once loomed large over the community had begun to dissipate, replaced by an air of tentative hope and renewal. Michael stood on his porch, gazing out at the street where so much had changed. The echoes of betrayal had once haunted these spaces, but now there was a palpable sense of determination to rebuild, to heal. Reflection became Michael's constant companion. He often found himself replaying the moments from that fateful day, the shock of discovery, the raw emotion of confrontation. Yet, amid the pain, he also saw the seeds of empowerment. The betrayal had been a crucible, forging within him a strength he hadn't known he possessed. The journey from heartbreak to empowerment was not a straight path, but each step had brought him closer to a version of himself that he was proud to be. As days turned into weeks, Michael discovered that healing was not a solitary endeavor. The coalition, born from shared experiences and united by a common purpose, became his lifeline. Together, they navigated the complexities of forgiveness and growth, their shared stories weaving a tapestry of resilience. Each meeting, each conversation, was a reminder that he was not alone. Through this network, Michael found himself changed. The community's support was a balm, soothing the scars left by betrayal. He realized that personal growth was not just about moving past the pain, but about embracing it, learning from it, and using it as fuel for transformation. The coalition meetings became a place of catharsis, where truths were spoken and healing began. The neighborhood, too, began to reflect this change. There was a newfound openness, a willingness to engage in conversations that had once been avoided. Trust, once shattered, was slowly being rebuilt, brick by brick. Michael, along with other victims of the scandal, took an active role in fostering this culture of openness and support. They organized community events, creating safe spaces where neighbors could share their stories and offer support. Michael emerged as a leader, not by choice, but by necessity. His journey had planted the seeds of change, and he felt a deep responsibility to nurture them. He became a catalyst, driving initiatives that emphasized integrity and mutual respect. Workshops on communication and trust building were held, and Michael often found himself at the forefront, guiding discussions and encouraging others to find strength in vulnerability. This new purpose gave Michael's life a clarity he hadn't anticipated. The pain of the past had been a harsh teacher, but it had also been a necessary one. With each step forward, he felt a renewed sense of agency, a commitment to ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. His resilience became a beacon, inspiring others to confront their own challenges with courage and integrity. As the community continued to heal, Michael found a sense of peace he had once thought impossible. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. The neighborhood, once fractured by deceit, had come together, united by a commitment to truth and justice. There was a shared understanding that integrity was not just a value, but a foundation upon which their future would be built. Standing before the community during a gathering, Michael felt a profound sense of connection. He spoke of the journey they had all undertaken, the lessons learned, and the strength discovered in their shared resolve. His voice, once tinged with uncertainty, now carried a quiet confidence. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he also knew that they would face them together. As the meeting concluded, Michael looked around at the faces of his neighbors, each one a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The journey from betrayal to empowerment had not been easy, but it had been necessary. Together, they had forged a path toward a future built on trust, a future where truth and justice were not just aspirations, but realities. In that moment, Michael realized that he had found something he hadn't expected, a sense of belonging. The community, strengthened by adversity, had become his family. The journey was far from over, but he knew that they would face whatever came next with courage and integrity. And as he stood there, surrounded by the people who had become his allies, Michael felt a deep sense of hope for the future they would build together.